Hi everyone, for today's lesson we are looking at creating some tie-dye for our pencil case. So you are going to be given a piece of fabric about this size, and this is going to be the final piece of fabric that you will use for your pencil case. So effectively this is your final outcome, so don't think this is just a test. This is your final outcome and will be used on your pencil case. So first of all, what you will need to do is write your name and your class code using a biro in the top corner of this. It's not in the middle, in the top corner. So effectively you need to have your name and your class code, so it might be 7C1 for example, but whatever it is, so you're going to put whatever your teacher asks you to do. So it's your name, that's your first name and surname, and then 7 followed by your class code. Now you will just be receiving one of these. You then have a variety of different options of how to complete your tie-dye. So I've got here several different options that are available to you. So this is a help sheet and it explains how to do it, but I'm just very quickly going to go through it with you. So for project A, it's a random pattern. So effectively what you would do is you would crush your piece of material to form a ball and tie up tightly with string or elastic bands. What that means is just getting it and scrunching it up like this, and then putting on elastic bands to hold it. So effectively you're going to get your elastic band like this, hold it roughly like that, and then tie that elastic band. You might need a couple just to keep it as it is. Now the idea with tie-dye is it's something called a form of resist dyeing, and the idea is where all these things are folded, it effectively stops the dye from getting to those places, which creates the pattern. So that's first of all your random pattern. Okay, you will need to leave it tied up in the ball, and your teacher will ask you, tell you where to put it. Your next project, now you need to pick only one of these projects for your pencil case, so you're not doing all of them, you pick which one you decide to go with. So the next one is stripes. Now to do stripes, effectively you'd use kind of a fan technique that you may have done using sort of paper when you were at school or something like that. So you're doing a fold. Okay, so for the stripes you are effectively folding and completing with your piece of fabric. So you need to fold it over first of all, a bit like that, fold it over again, fold it over again, and again, and again, until you get to the point where it's all folded together, roughly like that. And then with regards to this, you then put some elastic bands to secure it, roughly there. And again with this one, so stretch the elastic band out, push that over, pull it tighter, twist to there. So that's your stripes. And the last one is circles. We're not looking at project D for the minute, so the next one is circles. What you do with that is you'd lay it flat, you'd pinch it in the middle, roughly like that, and then effectively you are twisting it into a cone shape. Let me start that one again. So twisting until it's in a bit of a cone shape, and then you get your elastic bands and secure it on here. And one more at the very end. like that. So make sure they're secure and they're not about to fall off. So those are the different ways of folding them. When you have completed your piece and you've folded it and added your elastic bands, you will then need to put your piece of work where your teacher asked you to. Now, we usually use these drawstring bags where we've got different bags for each colour. So if you would want your tie-dye to be dyed yellow, you would put it in the yellow bag. If you'd like it to be dyed blue, put it in the blue bag. And our sort of pink ready dye, if you'd like it to be dyed that colour, put it in the red bag. Your teacher will then take the drawstring bags full of your tie-dye pieces, and she will arrange, or he will arrange, for them to be tie-dyed for you. However, I thought it was important that you also know about the dyeing process. So currently here I've got some Dylon fabric dye in a blue colour. Now it gives you some instructions on the back, but I'm just very quickly going to talk you through this. So with regards to the dye, what you would do to mix it is you would put some of that in there. You can weigh it out properly. I'm just going to do this with a couple of them, so I'm not going to make it too dark or waste too much dye as it's quite expensive. You would then add in some salt. Now we use the salt to fix the dye. If the salt is not on there, if the pencil case ever gets washed or that piece of fabric ever gets washed, the dye would come out, but the salt fixes it. You would then need to boil a kettle, and you would need boiling water. So boiling water in here, so you can see straight away as soon as the hot water touched this, the water changed to the blue colour. So within here now we've got the dye powder, we've got boiling hot water, and we have got the salt to keep it there. What your teacher will then do is they will take each of your pieces, and whichever colour it is, they dye it to that colour. So we also use a jug of water, and we dip your dye in there. That's cold water or lukewarm, but it's not boiling hot water at all. And the reason we do that is so that then the fabric soaks the dye a lot easier. So from there, it's just transferred to the pot with the dye in, and then you will see that the dye is effectively going to take and start dyeing your fabric for you. Now with dye, the intensity of it, so how vibrant it is, can depend on how much of this dye you have in there. You can also dye using other methods, so it can be things like natural dyes that you're looking at, which you might also be completing with your teacher. So with this, we need to make sure that everything's covered, and we turn these over every so often, and effectively then the dye is going to leave certain parts and other parts are going to be dyed. I will show you the finished outcome a little bit later. So your tie-dye will need to be left in here for several days, so or about a day, just so it soaks up the dye fully. And when that's been completed, we will then take your pieces of fabric out. We will wash them in some cold water to fix your dye, and then we will dry them. For your pencil case, you also need to give it a quick iron as well, so it stays really flat and becomes easier to sew. I hope that you understand now how to tie-dye fabric, and I look forward to seeing your outcomes. Once you have finished soaking your fabric in the dye, you can then start washing those off. Now it should be left for several hours, up to about a couple of days.
When you take off the elastic bands, use gloves, because or else it will end up transferring the dye to your hands. Same with aprons and things. Try not to get it on your clothes because it will stay and be permanent on there. So you need to take the elastic bands off. I'm running it underneath cold water, as this helps sets the dye and gets rid of any loose bits of dye that have not been transferred into the fabric, and it prevents anything coming off on your hands when you're sewing it together or anything like that. The elastic bands are taken off. You will then dry your tie-dye, and then when it's dry you can then work on it for your pencil case.